A shimmering veil, spun from starlight and ancient promises, separated me from the mortal realm. For eons, I had presided over the celestial dance, weaving destinies, and witnessing the tumultuous interplay of love and hatred among the Lycans. Their primal devotion to their mates, a bond I myself had woven into their very essence, was a paradox that both fascinated and troubled me. They spoke of fated connections, of souls intertwined, yet so often, those same bonds became instruments of devastation, driving them to unimaginable acts of cruelty and self-destruction. From my ethereal throne, I had seen kingdoms crumble and hearts shatter, all in the name of a love I could not fully comprehend. My sisters, the lesser deities, often scoffed at my fascination, dismissing it as a peculiar quirk of the moon goddess. "They are but mortals, sister," the goddess of dawn would chide, her voice a melodic whisper across the cosmic winds. "Their passions are fleeting, their lives but blinks in the eye of eternity." But I saw more. I saw the raw, unfiltered power of their emotions, a vibrancy that even the most luminous stars could not replicate. I yearned to understand, not from the distant perspective of a divine observer, but from within the very crucible of their existence. I wanted to feel the agonizing sting of betrayal, the intoxicating rush of true affection, the desperate longing that drove them to defy even their own nature. I yearned to understand why mates were so willing to destroy each other for love. And so, the decision was made. Against the counsel of my divine brethren, I shed my celestial form, trading the boundless expanse of the cosmos for the fragile confines of a mortal body. It was a perilous undertaking, a descent that risked not only my divine essence, but the delicate balance of the universe itself. My powers, though not entirely relinquished, were carefully tethered, like a magnificent kite held by a single slender thread. I would walk among them, a seemingly ordinary woman, my divine aura veiled by a carefully constructed illusion. My chosen point of entry was the obsidian forest, a place steeped in ancient magic and whispered legends. It was a territory claimed by the largest and most formidable Lycan pack, the Shadowmoon Pack, renowned for their unwavering loyalty and formidable strength. I knew the risks. My presence, even veiled, could disrupt the delicate harmony of their world. But the pull of their raw, untamed emotions, the enigma of their fated bonds, was too strong to resist. The transition was jarring. The crisp mountain air, sharp with the scent of pine and damp earth, filled my lungs, a stark contrast to the ethereal fragrances of the celestial spheres. The ground beneath my feet felt solid, unyielding, a foreign sensation after eons of floating through nebulae. My mortal eyes, though possessing the same celestial blue, now perceived the world with a new intensity. Every leaf, every dewdrop, every rustle of movement, vibrant and distinct. I felt the pulse of life around me, a symphony of chirping crickets and rustling leaves, a stark contrast to the silent cosmic dance I was accustomed to. I wandered for days, observing, learning. I saw the raw beauty of their untamed existence, the playful sparring of pups, the fierce protectiveness of a mother, the quiet camaraderie of hunters returning from a successful chase. I witnessed their rituals, their celebrations, their moments of grief. And through it all, I sought to understand the intricacies of their mate bonds, the invisible threads that bound their souls. I saw mates who moved as one, their thoughts and feelings mirroring each other with an uncanny precision. I saw others whose bonds were frayed, stretched thin by resentment and unspoken words. The spectrum was vast, the emotions raw and unfiltered. One evening, as twilight painted the forest in hues of deep violet and fading gold, I stumbled upon a clearing. A large, formidable wolf, his fur the color of obsidian, stood silhouetted against the setting sun. His posture exuded an undeniable aura of power, a quiet strength that rippled through the air around him. Even in his lupine form, there was an unmistakable nobility about him, a regal bearing that set him apart. Then he shifted. The transformation was swift, seamless, a breathtaking display of raw power and primal grace. In moments, the massive wolf was replaced by a man, tall and powerfully built, with broad shoulders and the lean corded muscle of a seasoned warrior. His hair, dark as midnight, framed a face carved from granite, stark and arresting. But it was his eyes that held me captive. They were a startling silver, like molten moonlight, and they held a depth of ancient wisdom and a hint of weary sorrow that belied his youthful appearance. As his gaze met mine, a jolt, unlike anything I had ever experienced, shot through me. It was a sensation of recognition, of coming home, a feeling that resonated deep within the core of my veiled divine essence. His name, I later learned, was Xander, the alpha of the Shadowmoon Pack, and he thought I was his fated mate. The declaration came almost immediately, a pronouncement delivered with the unwavering conviction of one who had waited a lifetime. His scent, a heady mix of pine, musk, and something undeniably primal, enveloped me, drawing me closer, even as a part of my divine self recoiled from the intensity of the mortal bond. This was the paradox I had come to understand, the very entanglement I sought to unravel. "Mine," he rumbled, his voice a low growl that vibrated through my very bones. His silver eyes, now alight with an intense possessiveness, swept over me, taking in every detail as if committing me to memory. "You are my Luna." My carefully constructed facade threatened to crack. I was the moon goddess, the weaver of these very bonds, not a recipient of one. The irony was almost comical, if it weren't for the crushing weight of the potential consequences. If he ever discovered who I truly was, loving me could cost him everything: his pack, his position, even his life. The sheer power of a divine being, even when veiled, could unravel the delicate fabric of their mortal existence. Yet, as he reached for me, his hand warm and strong as it encompassed mine, I felt an unfamiliar tremor of longing. It was a dangerous, exhilarating pull, a whisper of a possibility I had never considered. Could I, the impartial observer, the distant architect of their fates, truly experience this mortal love? Could I allow myself to feel the very emotions I sought to understand? The answer, I realized with a startling clarity, was already forming within me. I had descended to observe, to feel, to understand. And this unexpected connection with Xander, was an undeniable part of that journey. It was a risk, a monumental gamble with the cosmic balance, that the allure of the unknown, the tantalizing promise of genuine connection, was too potent to resist. I would play the part, I decided, and navigate this treacherous path, hoping that my veiled identity would protect him from the destructive truth. The first few days at the Shadowmoon Pack's territory were a whirlwind of new sensations and unfamiliar customs. The pack was a vibrant tapestry of personalities, from the boisterous young warriors to the serene wisdom of the elders. They accepted me with an open-hearted warmth that both surprised and touched me. Xander, true to his word, presented me as his fated mate, and their respect for him, and by extension, for me, was palpable. They looked at me with an awe that I instinctively knew was not entirely for me, but for the sacred bond they believed I shared with their alpha. My new quarters, a spacious room in the alpha's sprawling lodge, overlooked a breathtaking vista of towering pines and a winding river. It was a stark contrast to the boundless expanse of the cosmos, yet it held a peculiar comfort, a groundedness I hadn't realized I craved. I spent my mornings exploring the pack lands, my senses attuned to the whispers of the forest, the subtle shifts in the wind, the hidden pathways only known to the creatures of the wild. My divine senses, though muted, still picked up on the residual magic woven into the very fabric of this ancient land, a subtle hum beneath the surface of the mundane. Xander, ever the vigilant alpha, often accompanied me. He would tell me stories of the pack's history, of legendary hunts and ancient battles, his voice a low, comforting rumble. He spoke of his responsibilities, the weighty burden of leading his pack, protecting them from rogue threats and internal strife. I listened, truly listened, trying to decipher the intricate dance of leadership and the profound devotion he held for his people. I saw in him a strength that was not merely physical, but a deeply ingrained sense of duty and compassion. He was fiercely protective, a quality that both intrigued and unnerved me. His possessiveness, though at times overwhelming, was tempered by a profound gentleness, a quiet understanding that seemed to see past my carefully constructed facade. One afternoon, as we sat by a cascading waterfall, its roar a soothing backdrop to our conversation, he spoke of his longing for a Luna. "For generations," he began, his gaze fixed on the churning waters, "the Shadowmoon Pack has been without a true Luna. My ancestors, they always spoke of a bond so strong it could unite the very elements. I confess, I had begun to lose hope." He turned to me then, his silver eyes filled with an intensity that made my breath catch. "And then, you appeared. It was as if the moon herself had answered my prayers." A sharp pang of guilt, foreign and unsettling, pierced through my heart. He spoke of me with such reverence, such unwavering belief, and I was deceiving him, holding back a truth that could shatter his world. The more I learned about him, the more I witnessed his inherent goodness, his deep-seated sense of justice, the heavier the weight of my secret became. Yet, the thought of revealing my true identity sent a ripple of fear through me, not for myself, for I was eternal, but for him. The consequences could be catastrophic. Our bond, as he perceived it, grew stronger with each passing day. He would hold my hand during pack meetings, his thumb gently stroking my skin, a silent reassurance that spoke volumes. He would seek my counsel on pack matters, listening intently to my observations, though I offered them carefully, ensuring my words remained within the bounds of mortal wisdom. He started to share his burdens, the pressures of leadership, the anxieties of protecting his people. I found myself offering solace, a gentle touch on his arm, a soft word of encouragement, surprised by the natural ease with which these gestures came to me. There were moments, fleeting and dangerous, when my divine powers threatened to surface. A flash of light in the darkness as I reached for a misplaced object, a ripple in the air as I focused my intent. I quickly learned to control these impulses, to rein in my celestial energies, but it was a constant battle, a tightrope walk between my true nature and my assumed identity. The closer I grew to Xander, the more challenging it became to maintain the illusion. His scent, his touch, the very presence of his powerful aura awakened something ancient within me, a resonance that threatened to shatter my carefully constructed mortal shell. One evening, During a pack celebration under the full moon, the energy was electric, a joyous cacophony of laughter, music, and the rhythmic thump of dancing paws. Xander, in his wolf form, was a magnificent sight, his obsidian fur gleaming under the moonlight, his silver eyes alight with happiness. He moved among his pack, a true leader, his presence radiating strength and contentment. I watched him, a strange warmth spreading through my chest, an emotion that felt dangerously akin to fondness. As the night deepened, he shifted back, pulling me into a slow dance, his hand firm on my waist. His gaze, soft and tender, held mine. And in that moment, the entire world seemed to fade away. It was just us, bathed in the soft glow of the moon, moving as one. He leaned in, his voice a low whisper against my ear. "You are everything I never knew I needed," he murmured, his breath warm against my skin. "My Luna." My heart, or rather, the mortal organ I now possessed, constricted with a painful mix of affection and apprehension. The weight of my deception pressed down on me, a heavy cloak woven from silence and unspoken truths. He loved me, or rather, the version of me he perceived, and I, the aloof goddess, found myself irrevocably drawn to him, to his genuine nature, his unwavering devotion. This was the paradox, the very essence of the mortal love I had come to understand. It was beautiful, agonizing, and fraught with peril. The peace of the Shadowmoon Pack was a fragile thing, I quickly learned. Whispers of unrest from neighboring territories, fueled by escalating tensions over dwindling resources and ancient grievances, began to ripple through the pack. The Bloodfang Pack, a notoriously aggressive and expansionist group, had been encroaching on the Shadowmoon's hunting grounds. Their alpha, a ruthless and ambitious wolf named Kale, notorious for his brutal tactics. Xander spent increasingly long hours poring over maps, strategizing with his beta, a formidable warrior named Reese, and the pack elders. The jovial atmosphere of our early days began to recede, replaced by a palpable tension that hung heavy in the air. I observed him, noted the lines of worry etched around his eyes, the subtle clenching of his jaw as he wrestled with the weight of his responsibilities. He carried the burden of his pack's safety on his broad shoulders, a burden I now, in my mortal form, felt a strange empathy for. One evening, as he returned from a particularly tense meeting, his shoulders slumped with exhaustion, I found him by the hearth, staring into the flickering flames. The firelight danced across his rugged features, illuminating the weariness that permeated him. "The Bloodfangs grow bolder," he said, his voice a low rumble, devoid of its usual vibrancy. "Kale seeks war. He believes our lands are his for the taking." I sat beside him, the silence stretching between us, filled only by the crackling of the fire. I wanted to offer more than just solace, more than empty words. I wanted to use my divine insight, to whisper prophecies of victory, to weave protective spells around his pack. But I was bound by my mortal form, by the constraints I had imposed upon myself. I was here to observe, to understand, not to interfere directly. Yet, the sight of his distress, the genuine anguish in his silver eyes, stirred something deep within me, something beyond mere observation. "War is a heavy price," I said softly, my voice barely above a whisper. "Even for victory." He turned to me then, his gaze piercing. "And what choice do we have, Luna? To surrender our lands? To allow Kale to decimate our people? My ancestors would spit on my grave." "There are always choices," I countered, surprising even myself with the conviction in my voice. "Perhaps not easy ones, but choices nonetheless. Have you sought counsel beyond your warriors? From the spirits of the forest, perhaps, or from the wisdom of the moon? His brow furrowed slightly, a hint of curiosity in his eyes. The spirits are elusive, Luna, and the moon she watches, but she does not speak. A part of me wanted to laugh, to reveal the irony of his words. But I held my tongue, merely offering a small, enigmatic smile. Perhaps you haven't been listening closely enough. In the days that followed, the skirmishes escalated. Minor territorial disputes turned into violent clashes, with reports of injured warriors and ravaged lands reaching the Shadowmoon Pack. The scent of fear and anger permeated the air, a toxic cocktail that threatened to ignite into full-blown war. Pack members became more wary, their senses heightened, their eyes constantly scanning the perimeter for signs of danger. Xander, ever the leader, spent less time by my side and more time with his warriors, preparing for the inevitable. I saw the toll it took on him, the sleepless nights, the constant vigilance. He was a beacon of strength for his pack, but even the strongest light can flicker under immense pressure. One evening, under the pale glow of a crescent moon, a young warrior, barely more than a pup, returned to the pack lodge, his arm gushing blood, his face contorted in pain. He spoke of an ambush, of the Bloodfang's brutality, of the overwhelming odds. A wave of outrage swept through the pack, a raw, primal roar for vengeance. Xander, his face a mask of grim determination, moved swiftly, his voice cutting through the rising tide of anger. "We will avenge our fallen," he declared, his voice resonating with authority. "But we will do so with strategy, not blind rage." As the pack healer tended to the wounded warrior, I felt a familiar surge of energy within me, a faint echo of my divine healing powers. It was a dangerous temptation, a primal urge to alleviate suffering, to mend what was broken. But I resisted, focusing instead on the subtle nuances of the mortal healing process, the delicate balance of herbs and ancient remedies. I was here to understand, not to solve their problems with a wave of my hand. Later that night, as the pack slept, restless and on edge, I found myself drawn to the clearing where I had first encountered Xander. The air was thick with the scent of pine and damp earth, punctuated by the distant howls of wolves. I looked up at the crescent moon, my true domain, a silent witness to the impending conflict. A profound sadness settled over me, a melancholic ache that resonated with the weight of humanity's struggles. They were so fragile, so vulnerable, yet so fiercely resilient, capable of both immense love and devastating hatred. I closed my eyes, and for a fleeting moment allowed my true self to surface, just enough to communicate with the very essence of the forest. The ancient trees, the slumbering spirits of the land, whispered secrets to me, tales of past battles, of forgotten alliances, of hidden strengths. I saw the intricate web of connections, the unseen currents that flowed beneath the surface of the physical world. It was a tapestry woven from the very fabric of their existence, a tapestry I had woven myself, yet one that, in my mortal form, felt entirely new. When I opened my eyes, a faint shimmer of starlight seemed to cling to my fingertips. I had gained no new powers, no grand solutions, but I had gained a deeper understanding, a clearer perspective. The war was coming, an inevitable clash born from ancient grievances and territorial ambitions. But perhaps, just perhaps, there was a path through the darkness, a way for Xander to navigate the storm without losing his pack, or himself. The understanding of their intricate interconnectedness was a powerful tool, one I could subtly guide him towards, without revealing the full extent of my divine knowledge. The delicate dance between observer and participant continued, each step fraught with the potential for revelation and disaster. The scent of blood, a coppery tang on the crisp morning air, pierced through the illusion of peace. The Lycankind pack had launched a full-scale assault, their howls echoing through the forest like harbingers of death. The Shadowmoon warriors, though prepared, were outnumbered, their territory vast and difficult to defend against a surprise attack. I stood on the periphery of the chaos, my senses overwhelmed by the raw emotions of the battlefield, the adrenaline-fueled fear, the burning rage, the desperate courage. Xander, in his colossal wolf form, was a whirlwind of obsidian fur and flashing fangs, a formidable protector leading his pack with unwavering courage. He moved with a brutal efficiency, a true alpha, his roars of command cutting through the cacophony of the battle. My heart, still beating with the rhythm of a mortal, ached with a strange mixture of awe and fear. I saw the raw beauty of his strength, but also the vulnerability of his mortal form against such overwhelming odds. I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, that I could end this. A mere flick of my wrist, a whisper of a divine command, and the Bloodfang pack would scatter, their aggression extinguished. But that was not why I was here. I was here to understand the complexities of their love and their conflicts, not to intervene as a divine savior. This was their struggle, their destiny to forge. Yet, the urge to protect him, to shield him from harm, was a powerful, almost overwhelming force. It was a new sensation for me, this possessiveness, this primal desire to defend a being I had come to care for. As the battle raged, I saw a familiar glint of silver in the chaos gale. The Bloodfang Alpha, his eyes alight with a predatory gleam, singling out Xander. Their clash was inevitable, a brutal dance of power and ferocity. I watched, my breath caught in my throat, as the two alphas locked in a desperate struggle, their roars shaking the very trees. Kale, though smaller, fought with a cunning born of pure malice, his attacks relentless and unforgiving. Xander, burdened by the defense of his pack, fought with a noble ferocity, but I saw the strain in his movements, the subtle weakening of his defenses. Just as Kale lunged for a killing blow, a blur of silver and black, I saw a young Shadowmoon warrior, Reese's younger brother, leap in front of Xander, taking the brunt of the attack. He fell, a guttural cry escaping his lips, his lifeblood staining the forest floor. A scream tore from my throat, a sound I hadn't known my mortal form was capable of producing. It was a raw, primal cry, born not of fear for myself, but of agonizing grief for the innocent life lost, and profound terror for Xander. In that instant, something shifted within me. The carefully constructed veil around my powers thinned, stretched taut by the intensity of my emotions. A faint, almost imperceptible shimmer surrounded me, a celestial aura attempting to break through my mortal shell. The air crackled with a latent energy, a hum that only the most sensitive Lycans might perceive. Xander, momentarily distracted by the loss of his warrior, turned, his silver eyes meeting mine across the chaotic battlefield. For a fleeting second, I saw a flicker of something new in his gaze, a profound recognition, as if he sensed the true power simmering beneath my surface, even as he was consumed by grief and rage. The loss of his warrior ignited a furious blaze within Xander. He roared, a sound that shook the very ground, and launched himself at Kale with a renewed, devastating force. The fight became a brutal ballet of teeth and claws, a desperate struggle for dominance. Xander, fueled by grief and a primal need for vengeance, fought with a ferocity that seemed to transcend his physical limits. He was no longer just an alpha defending his pack. He was a force of nature, a vengeful spirit unleashed. I stood rooted to the spot, my hands clenched into fists, the echoes of my own scream still vibrating in my ears. I knew, logically, that this was their path, their struggle, but the sight of Xander, battered and bleeding, pushed me to the precipice of intervention. The moon goddess in me raged, demanding to protect her chosen. The mortal woman in me wept, longing to soothe his pain. As the fight reached its climax, Kale, seeing his advantage slipping, resorted to a cowardly tactic. He feigned a retreat, then lunged, not for Xander, but for one of the weaker Shadowmoon warriors, a female protecting a group of pups. It was a diversion, a cruel manipulation designed to draw Xander away. Without thinking, I moved. It wasn't a conscious decision, no logical thought process. It was an instinct, a sudden, overwhelming need to protect. As Kale's jaws snapped towards the terrified female, a surge of power, raw and untamed, erupted from me. It wasn't a deliberate act of magic, but an uncontrolled burst of my divine essence, a protective shield shimmering into existence, deflecting Kale's attack with a blinding flash of light. The light pulsed, briefly illuminating the chaotic battlefield, and for a split second, the world seemed to hold its breath. Lycans on both sides recoiled, their eyes wide with disbelief, sensing the raw, unearthly power emanating from me. Kale, thrown off balance, stumbled back, his eyes narrowed, a mixture of fear and confusion flickering within them. Xander, who had been moments away from engaging Kale, froze, his silver eyes fixed on me, on the shimmering aura that still faintly clung to my form. His expression was a complex mixture of shock, awe, and a dawning realization that chilled me to my core. He saw it. He saw a glimpse of my true nature. The veil, once so carefully woven, had been irrevocably torn. The raw power that had surged through me was undeniable. Undeniable even to a Lycan who lived and breathed the mundane. The battle, momentarily paused by my unintended display, resumed with a renewed ferocity, but now every glance, every howl, seemed to be directed at me, at the anomaly in their midst. I stood there, exposed, my heart pounding in my chest with a rhythm that was both mortal fear and divine apprehension. The consequences, I knew, would be profound. The very thing I had sought to avoid, the revelation of my true identity, had come to pass, not through a calculated decision, but through a primal, unfiltered act of protection. The delicate balance I had sought to maintain had been shattered, and now the true cost of my masquerade was about to be revealed. The path forward was uncertain, fraught with danger, and irrevocably altered by that single, impulsive act of divine intervention. The battle raged on, but the dynamic had irrevocably shifted. The Bloodfangs, momentarily stunned by the inexplicable power I had displayed, fought with a renewed, frantic desperation, as if facing an unknown, formidable adversary. The Shadowmoon Pack, on the other hand, fought with a surge of renewed hope, their eyes occasionally darting towards me, a mix of reverence and confusion in their gaze. Xander, after that initial moment of profound shock, seemed to have compartmentalized his bewilderment. He fought with a singular focus, his movements even more precise, more deadly, as if driven by a new, unspoken purpose. He was protecting his pack, yes, but I felt, keenly, his protective gaze always lingering on me, his silent question hanging in the blood-soaked air. The tide slowly began to turn. The Shadowmoon warriors, emboldened by their alpha's unwavering resolve, and the inexplicable presence of a seemingly powerful ally, pushed back with ferocity. Kale, his face contorted in a mask of rage and frustration, fought like a cornered animal, but the tide of the battle was against him. Finally, with a desperate roar, he gave the command to retreat, his blood-fang warriors melting back into the shadows of the forest, leaving behind their dead and wounded. Silence, heavy and unsettling, descended upon the battlefield. The only sounds were the ragged breaths of the surviving warriors, the soft whimpers of the wounded, and the mournful howls of those who mourned their fallen. Xander shifted back into his human form, his body streaked with dirt and blood, his silver eyes still fixed on me. The raw emotions of the battle were still etched on his face: grief, weariness, and a profound, undeniable question. Reese, his beta, rushed to his side, his face a mixture of relief and concern. "Alpha, are you well?" he asked, his voice hoarse. Xander merely nodded, his gaze never leaving mine. He began to walk towards me, slowly, deliberately, as if approaching a skittish wild creature. Each step was heavy, laden with the unspoken questions that hung between us. The other Shadowmoon warriors, their eyes wide and curious, watched his approach, their whispers like a murmur of the wind through the pines. When he reached me, he stopped, just an arm's length away. His chest rose and fell with heavy breaths, and I could feel the raw power still thrumming beneath his skin. His hand, still covered in the grime of battle, reached out, not to touch me, but to hover inches from my face, as if he was afraid to break the fragile illusion. "What was that?" he asked, his voice low, a strained whisper. His silver eyes searched mine, pleading for an answer, for an explanation that I knew would shatter his world. That Lyta, the power, it wasn't normal. My carefully constructed facade finally crumbled. The strength that had allowed me to maintain the illusion throughout the battle now abandoned me. The raw vulnerability of his gaze, the innocent trust in his eyes, made my carefully guarded secrets unbearable. I began, my voice trembling. "I am not who you think I am, Xander." The admission hung in the air, a fragile truth finally unleashed. His eyes widened imperceptibly, a flicker of something akin to betrayal crossing his features, quickly replaced by confusion. "What are you talking about?" he asked, his voice growing firmer, a hint of steel entering his tone. "You are my Luna, my fated mate." I took a deep breath, the scent of damp earth and blood filling my lungs, grounding me in this mortal moment. This was it, the moment of truth. The consequences, whatever they may be, were now inevitable. The concept of fated mates. "Xander," I said, my voice gaining strength as I embraced the terrifying truth. "The very bonds that tie your souls together, I crafted them." His expression became utterly blank, a stark canvas upon which the monumental weight of my words slowly began to register. Reese, who had cautiously approached, stumbled back a step, his eyes wide with a mixture of disbelief and fear. The whispers among the warriors ceased, replaced by a stunned silence, as if the entire forest held its breath. "I am the moon goddess," I declared, my voice resonating with an authority I had long suppressed, the suppressed divine energy momentarily flaring, making the very air around me hum. "I came down in mortal form to observe, to feel, to understand why mates are so willing to destroy each other for love. What I didn't expect was you and Alpha, whose soul is tied to mine by threads older than time." The silence stretched, thick and suffocating. Xander's face, usually so expressive, was now a mask of utter shock, his silver eyes staring through me as if he was seeing a ghost. His jaw worked, but no words came out. The betrayal, the incomprehension, the sheer impossibility of my revelation seemed to overwhelm him. Finally, a low, guttural growl escaped his throat, a sound of raw pain and disbelief. You lied to me," he whispered, the words laced with a profound agony that pierced me deeper than any physical wound. "You let me believe, you let me love you, believing you were my fated mate, when all this time you were playing a game." "It was never a game, Xander," I pleaded, my voice filled with a desperate urgency. "I never intended for this to happen. My descent was for understanding, not deception. But you showed me something I had never known, a love that is pure, unwavering, even in the face of despair." He took a step back, his eyes darkening, the glimmer of betrayal now fully consuming them. "A love you created, perhaps? A divine experiment?" His voice was laced with a bitter cynicism that twisted my heart. "Is that what I am to you? A subject in your grand research?" "No!" I cried, reaching out to him, but he recoiled as if my touch would burn him. "You are not a subject. You are the reason I understood, the reason I felt. You are the one who showed me the true power of a mortal heart." The other pack members, their initial shock slowly morphing into a mixture of fear and anger, began to murmur amongst themselves. "The moon goddess? In our midst? A trick! She tricked our alpha!" Rhys, though still visibly shaken, stepped forward, his eyes narrowed with suspicion. "If this is true, why now? Why reveal yourself in the midst of a battle? What do you gain from this deception?" "There was no grand plan, Rhys," I said, my gaze still fixed on Xander, whose eyes were now cold, distant. "My powers reacted to the imminent danger, to save him, to save his pack." The words sounded hollow even to my own ears, inadequate in the face of such a monumental revelation. Xander's gaze hardened, his silver eyes now mirroring the cold, unforgiving light of the moon itself. "Save me?" he scoffed, a bitter laugh escaping his lips. "You allowed us to fight, to bleed, to die, all while holding this immense power within you, and you call that saving?" He shook his head, a profound weariness settling over him. This changes everything. Everything I believed, everything I felt it, was all a lie. The finality in his voice was a physical blow. The silence that followed was deafening, punctuated only by the mournful howls of the wind through the pines. The beautiful, dangerous bond we had forged, the very connection I had come to understand, was now shattered, broken by the weight of an unimaginable truth. The journey of understanding had come at a terrible price, a price paid in the heartbreak of the one I had unknowingly come to cherish. My descent into the mortal world, meant to illuminate the complexities of love, had instead ignited a devastating conflict of my own making. The air in the Shadowmoon Pack's lodge was thick with an oppressive silence. The revelation of my true identity had shattered the fragile peace, replacing it with a palpable tension. The pack, once so welcoming, now regarded me with a mix of fear, awe, and thinly veiled resentment. Whispers followed me wherever I went, hushed voices filled with questions and accusations. I was no longer their alpha's fated mate, their Luna. I was a deity in disguise, an impostor who had infiltrated their lives under false pretenses. Xander, the one person whose understanding I yearned for, remained distant. He moved through the lodge like a ghost, his face a mask of cold fury and profound betrayal. His silver eyes, once warm with affection, now held a chilling blankness whenever they met mine. He avoided me, spending his days with Rhys and the elders. immersed in the aftermath of the battle and the perplexing implications of my presence. The pack healer, a kind and gentle woman, still offered me food and water, her gaze wary but not outright hostile, perhaps recognizing a shared vulnerability in my seemingly powerful form. I understood his anger. I understood their fear. I had woven the very fabric of their world, and then, in my hubris, I had woven myself into it under false pretenses. The depth of his perceived betrayal was a wound I could not heal, not with divine power, and certainly not with mere words. One day, unable to bear the suffocating silence and the weight of their judgment, I sought him out. He was in the Alpha's study, a room filled with ancient scrolls and maps, the scent of parchment and old wood clinging to the air. He sat at his large carved desk, his head in his hands, his broad shoulders slumped. He looked utterly defeated, and the sight of his despair twisted something within me. "Xander," I said softly, my voice barely a whisper in the silent room. He flinched, then slowly raised his head. His silver eyes, though weary, still held that piercing coldness. "What do you want?" His voice was flat, devoid of emotion. "I want you to understand," I pleaded, stepping further into the room. "I want you to know that my intentions were never to deceive you. My descent was a quest for understanding, not for manipulation. I never sought to hurt you." He rose slowly, his gaze unwavering, his formidable presence filling the small space. "Understanding?" He scoffed, a bitter laugh escaping his lips. "You wish to understand the pain of mortals, so you inflicted it upon me? You wish to understand love, so you played with my heart, making me believe in a bond that, to you, was merely an observation." "It wasn't like that," I protested, my own voice rising in desperation. "The connection we formed, it was real. For me, it was real. I never anticipated feeling what I felt for you. It was an unexpected consequence of my descent." "A consequence?" He spat, his voice rising, a tremor of fury now evident. My entire life, my beliefs, my very identity as an alpha were built upon the concept of a fated mate. And you, the very deity who wove those threads, allowed me to fall, to believe, only to rip it all away with a casual wave of your hand. He slammed his fist on the desk, the heavy wood groaning under the impact. "How do I lead my pack now? How do I look them in the eye, knowing I was fooled by a goddess playing dress-up? They looked to you as their Luna, as the one who would bring stability, who would bring new life. And you were a lie." The accusations, though harsh, were undeniably true. The enormity of my oversight, the devastating impact of my well-intentioned but ultimately flawed experiment, crashed down upon me. I had been so focused on my own divine quest for understanding that I had failed to consider the profound, earth-shattering consequences for the mortals whose lives I touched. "I am truly sorry, Xander," I whispered, the words inadequate to express the depths of my regret. "I caused you pain, and for that, I offer my deepest apologies. I wish there was a way to undo it, to go back and rectify my mistake." He scoffed again, a dry, humorless sound. "You, the moon goddess, apologizing to a mere mortal. What a charming paradox. But apologies don't mend broken hearts, nor do they restore shattered trust." He walked towards the window, staring out at the darkening forest, his back to me. "You spoke of my soul being tied to yours by threads older than time. What does that mean exactly? Is this another of your cosmic jokes?" Are we bound in some grand, ironic design? His question, though filled with bitterness, was genuine. It was a crack in his armor, a sliver of curiosity that I desperately clung to. It means, I began, my voice soft but firm, that even before my descent, before I consciously chose to walk among you, there was a resonance between us, a fundamental alignment of our energies. It is why you perceived me as your fated mate, why our connection felt so profound. It wasn't a trick of my power. It was a deeper truth, an ancient echo. He turned, his eyes searching mine, a flicker of something unreadable passing through them. An echo? He repeated, a hint of vulnerability in his voice. So, you're saying in this feeling, this Bonda, it wasn't entirely your doing? It was real, in some sense. Yes, I affirmed, my voice filled with a desperate earnestness. It was real, and in my mortal form, I allowed myself to feel it, to experience the raw, untamed beauty of it. That is why I could not bear to see you harmed, why I intervened during the battle. It was not a calculated move, but an instinct, a genuine surge of protection born from that real connection. He stood silent for a long moment, his gaze piercing, scrutinizing, as if trying to discern the truth in my words. The anger in his eyes slowly began to recede, replaced by a deep, profound sadness. So what now? He asked, his voice barely a whisper. Do you return to your celestial throne, leaving chaos in your wake? Do you continue your observations elsewhere? The question hung heavy in the air, a demand for a resolution I hadn't yet found. The truth was, I didn't know what now. My divine purpose had been fulfilled, in a way. I had experienced the depths of mortal love, its intoxicating beauty, its devastating pain. But the cost had been Xander's heartbreak, disruption of his pack, the precarious balance of their world. I was no longer merely an observer. I was a participant, my presence inextricably woven into the tapestry of their lives. The path back to my celestial realm seemed distant, uninviting, especially now that I understood the profound emptiness it held without the vibrant chaos of mortal emotion. I had touched the earth, and the earth had indelibly changed me. His question, hanging in the oppressive silence, demanded an answer. The truth was, I had no clear path forward. My celestial brethren would undoubtedly demand my return, chastise me for my unauthorized prolonged stay and the disruption I had caused. But the thought of simply abandoning the Shadowmoon Pack, abandoning Xander to deal with the fallout of my revelation, twisted something inside me. I had come to understand their resilience, their courage, their capacity for profound loyalty, and I had caused them pain. I don't know what now, I admitted, my voice a quiet confession. My purpose for descending has been fulfilled. I have learned what I sought to understand, but I cannot simply abandon you or your pack in the aftermath of my revelation. I caused this disruption, and I feel a responsibility to mitigate its effects. Xander scoffed, a dry, bitter sound. Mitigate? How does a goddess mitigate the betrayal of trust, the shattering of a leader's credibility? My pack, they are confused, fearful. Some are angry. They believed in you, Luna. They believed in our bond. I know, I said, my voice heavy with remorse. And I carry that burden. But perhaps my presence, now that my identity is known, can serve a different purpose. The Shadowmoon Pack is strong, Xander, but they are wary of the unknown. And the Bloodfangs, they will return. Your world is on the brink of another conflict. He turned fully to face me, his gaze still guarded, but a flicker of something akin to curiosity in his silver eyes. What are you suggesting? I am suggesting that I remain, I stated, my voice gaining a quiet conviction. Not as your Luna, not as your mate, but as an ally. My knowledge, my understanding of the celestial currents, of the ebb and flow of power in this world, it could aid you. I would not interfere directly, not in their battles, but I could offer guidance, counsel. I could help them understand the balance, the natural forces at play. He stared at me, his expression unreadable, a silent battle raging within him. The anger was still there, a simmering undercurrent, but beneath it, I sensed the practical alpha, the leader who always sought the best for his pack. The moon goddess, even veiled, possessed immense power, immense knowledge. To have such a being as an ally, even a reluctant one, was an undeniable advantage in the precarious world of Lycan politics. And what do you gain from this? He asked, his voice laced with suspicion. Redemption? Penance? Perhaps, I admitted, my gaze unwavering. Perhaps a chance to atone for the chaos I inadvertently caused. Or perhaps it is simply because I care about what happens to you, Xander, to your pack. The admission was raw, vulnerable, a reflection of the genuine emotions I had allowed myself to feel during my masquerade. He was silent for a long moment. The sounds of the distant forest the only interruption to the tension in the room. Finally, he ran a hand through his dark hair, a gesture of weary resignation. This changes nothing about what happened between us, he said, his voice firm, the pain still evident. The trust is broken. But the pack needs stability. They need guidance. And the Bloodfangs are a genuine threat. He paused, his silver eyes meeting mine, a grudging acceptance in their depths. Very well. You may stay. But you will be an advisor, nothing more. And any intervention, any display of your true power, must be at my express command. No more surprises. It was a fragile truce, built on the ashes of shattered trust, but it was a beginning. I nodded, a silent acknowledgement of his terms. Agreed. The days that followed were a delicate dance of distance and reluctant collaboration. Xander, true to his word, included me in strategic discussions, though he maintained a formal, detached demeanor. He would listen intently to my insights, especially when I spoke of the hidden currents of energy that influenced the land, or the subtle shifts in the celestial alignments that could impact the outcome of battles. I offered my counsel carefully, framing my divine knowledge in terms that a mortal Lycan could understand, presenting them as observations of natural phenomena rather than divine pronouncements. Reese, though still wary, slowly began to regard me with a grudging respect. He was a pragmatist, and he recognized the undeniable value of my insights, even if he didn't fully comprehend their source. The pack elders, their wisdom rooted in ancient traditions, were more open to my guidance, seeing in my words echoes of forgotten prophecies and the ancient wisdom of the moon herself. My presence, though initially a source of confusion and distrust, slowly began to shift. The fear lessened, replaced by a hesitant curiosity. The younger pups, unburdened by the prejudices of their elders, were often drawn to me, sensing a different kind of energy, an aura of quiet power that intrigued them. I would tell them stories of the stars, of the ancient forests, of the creatures that roamed beyond their sight, subtly weaving in lessons of balance and interconnectedness. The threat of the Bloodfangs remained, a constant shadow hanging over the Shadowmoon Pack. Reports of Kale's continued aggression, his ruthless tactics, fueled the undercurrent of anxiety. But with my subtle guidance, Xander began to anticipate his moves, to fortify their defenses in unexpected ways, to prepare his warriors with a deeper understanding of the battlefield, not just its physical aspects, but its energetic currents. One evening, as the full moon hung heavy in the sky, casting an ethereal glow over the forest, Xander sought me out. He found me by the large, ancient oak tree that stood at the heart of the Packlands, its gnarled branches reaching towards the sky like supplicating arms. The moonlight seemed to cling to my form, making me appear almost translucent, a stark contrast to his dark, powerful silhouette. "The Bloodfangs are planning a major offensive," he stated, his voice low, his face grim. "They will attack at dawn. I have received intel that they have allied with a rogue faction, increasing their numbers significantly." I nodded, my gaze fixed on the luminous orb above. The celestial alignments are indeed restless. The energies are converging, portending a great struggle. He stood silent for a moment, then turned to face me fully, his silver eyes, in the moonlight, holding a depth of emotion I hadn't seen since my revelation. "This time," he said, his voice laced with a reluctant vulnerability, "I need more than guidance. I need your power. Not to fight our battles for us, but to protect, to shield my pack." It was an admission of need, a testament to the fragile trust that, despite everything, still flickered between us. The anger was still there, the wound of betrayal unhealed, but the alpha in him, the protector of his pack, had overridden his personal pain. "To what extent?" I asked, my voice calm, but my heart, the mortal heart I now possessed, quickening with a mixture of apprehension and a strange sense of vindication. "A protective ward," he said, his gaze unwavering. "Something that will deflect their most potent attacks, weaken their resolve, but not engage them directly. Something that will allow my warriors to fight on equal terms, without being overwhelmed by their numbers and their numbers." Savagery. It was a dangerous request. To weave such a ward would require a significant exertion of my divine power, risking further exposure, further disruption to the delicate balance of their world. But his trust, however reluctant, was a powerful motivator. "It will drain me," I warned, "and it will reveal more of my nature to your pack and to your enemies." "I understand the risks," he said, his voice firm. "But the alternative is annihilation. My pack is worth the risk, even if it means bearing witness to things they may not comprehend." I looked at him, truly looked at him, and saw not just the alpha, but the man who had loved me, who had been willing to risk everything for his people. The pain of the past was still there, a raw wound, but beneath it, a nascent understanding, a fragile alliance was beginning to take root. This was not the love I had sought to understand, but a different, equally powerful facet of the mortal experience: resilience, forgiveness, and the selfless sacrifice for the greater good. "Very well," I said, my voice barely a whisper, yet resonating with an ancient power that made the very air hum. "I will weave the ward. But you must understand, Xander, this is not a solution to your conflict. It is merely a shield. The ultimate victory or defeat will still rest on the strength and courage of your pack." He nodded, a silent acknowledgement of my words. As I began to gather the ethereal threads of magic, preparing to weave the protective tapestry, I felt a familiar surge of cosmic energy flow through me. It was a power that transcended the physical, a connection to the very essence of creation. But this time it was tempered by something new, something profound, the understanding of mortal vulnerability, the weight of their struggles, and the quiet, unwavering courage of a man who, despite everything, still placed his trust in a goddess in disguise. The moon, now high above, seemed to shine even brighter, casting its benevolent gaze upon the fragile alliance forged in the heart of the obsidian forest. The dawn broke, painting the eastern sky in hues of fiery orange and deep crimson, a fitting backdrop for the impending battle. The air thrummed with a nervous energy, the scent of fear and anticipation hanging heavy. The Shadowmoon warriors stood ready, their faces grim, their eyes fixed on the forest's edge, from which the bloodfangs would emerge. I stood beside Xander, not amongst the warriors, but a little behind them, my presence a silent, ethereal beacon. My eyes were closed, my senses attuned to the subtle vibrations of the earth, the unseen currents of energy that flowed beneath the surface of the physical world. I was already weaving the protective ward, a complex tapestry of starlight and ancient blessings, a shimmering shield meant to dampen the Bloodfang's aggressive magic and deflect their most potent attacks. The effort was immense, a profound drain on my veiled divine energy, but the image of Xander's weary face, his reluctant trust, fueled my resolve. As the first howls of the Bloodfangs echoed through the forest, a low guttural chorus that sent shivers down the spines of even the bravest warriors, I opened my eyes. A faint, almost invisible shimmer radiated from my form, a subtle distortion in the air around me. It was the ward, now fully active, a protective barrier that would act as a silent guardian for the Shadowmoon Pack. The Bloodfangs, led by Kale, surged from the tree line, a wave of dark fur and snarling teeth. They were even more numerous than anticipated, their eyes alight with a predatory glee, confident in their overwhelming numbers. But as they hit the invisible barrier, a ripple of confusion spread through their ranks. Their most aggressive attacks, their dark, corrupted magic, seemed to dissipate upon contact with the ward, their blows losing their force, their howls echoing with a strange, muffled quality. Kale, his eyes narrowing in frustrated rage, roared, attempting to rally his confused warriors. He sensed the unseen force, the subtle resistance, but he couldn't comprehend its source. This was not the conventional magic of a Lycan shaman. It was something far older, far more potent. The Shadowmoon warriors, though initially bewildered by the unexpected protection, quickly recognized its effect. They fought with a renewed vigor, their movements more fluid, their attacks more decisive. The tide of the battle, though not definitively turned, had been significantly balanced. Xander, a force of nature in his wolf form, moved through the fray, his blows powerful and precise, his roars of command echoing across the battlefield. He was fighting smarter, not harder, utilizing the unexpected advantage the ward provided. I watched him, a strange warmth spreading through me. He was still angry, still hurting, but he was also a magnificent leader, unwavering in his devotion to his pack. The strength of his mortal spirit, his enduring courage, was a testament to the very essence of Lycan existence. The battle raged for hours, a brutal symphony of growls, snarls, and the clash of bodies. The Bloodfangs, though still numerous, grew increasingly frustrated and disoriented by the ward's unwavering resistance. Their morale began to falter, their attacks losing their initial ferocity. Kale, desperate to break through the unseen barrier, lunged repeatedly at the Shadowmoon lines, his face contorted with rage, but each time, his attacks were blunted, his progress hindered. As the sun climbed higher, illuminating the devastation of the battlefield. Kale, seeing the futility of his efforts, let out a frustrated snarl. He was a ruthless leader, but not a fool. He recognized the insurmountable obstacle. With a final, furious roar, he gave the command to retreat, his remaining warriors melting back into the forest, leaving behind a significantly larger number of casualties than they had inflicted. The silence that followed was once again heavy, but this time it was a silence of exhaustion and grudging victory, not of grief. The Shadowmoon warriors, though wounded and weary, stood tall, their chests heaving, their eyes alight with a quiet triumph. They had survived. They had won. And they knew, instinctively, that I had played a crucial role. Xander shifted back into his human form, his body bruised and battered, but his silver eyes held a profound gratitude. He walked towards me, slowly, deliberately, his gaze unwavering. The pack, bruised but not broken, watched him, their curiosity palpable. "You honored your word," he said, his voice rasped with fatigue, but tinged with a new respect. "The ward, it was incredible. It saved us." "It gave you an advantage," I corrected gently, my own energy levels depleted, a subtle tremor running through my body. "The victory was yours. Your courage, your strength, your unity. Those are the true foundations of your pack." He nodded, a ghost of a smile touching his lips. "Perhaps, but without your assistance, the outcome would have been far different." He paused, his gaze searching mine, and for the first time since my revelation, the raw anger seemed to have dissipated, replaced by a quiet contemplation. "You could have done more. You could have annihilated them. Why didn't you?" "That is not my purpose," I explained, my voice soft but firm. "I am the moon goddess, not a harbinger of destruction. I govern balance. To interfere directly in the affairs of mortals, to dictate their outcomes, would be to unravel the very fabric of their existence. My role is to observe, to guide subtly, and to ensure the natural order of things." He nodded slowly, a dawning understanding in his eyes. "The balance," he murmured. "I see." He extended a hand, a gesture of respect, of a fragile bridge being built across the chasm of their past. "Thank you for protecting my pack." I took his hand, my fingers brushing against his calloused skin, and a jolt, different from the initial shock of recognition, but equally profound, passed between us. It was a connection of mutual respect, of shared experience, of a bond forged not in romantic love, but in the crucible of battle and shared purpose. The pack, observing this exchange, began to murmur amongst themselves, their fears slowly giving way to awe. They had witnessed my power, not as a weapon, but as a shield, a benevolent force that had saved them from annihilation. The goddess in their midst was no longer just an enigma, but a protector, a silent guardian. The path ahead remained uncertain. The trust was still fragile, the wound of betrayal still healing. But something new had begun to bloom in the heart of the obsidian forest, a delicate flower of understanding and reluctant alliance. My descent into the mortal world, fraught with unexpected turns and painful revelations, had led me to a truth far more profound than I had ever anticipated, that even a goddess could learn from the resilience, the courage, and the enduring spirit of mortal hearts. The cosmic dance continued, but now I was not merely its architect. I was, in a small but significant way, a dancer within its intricate steps. In the aftermath of the battle, a quiet shift settled over the Shadowmoon Pack. The initial shock and fear surrounding my identity began to recede, replaced by a grudging acceptance, even a nascent reverence. They had seen my power, not as a destructive force, but as a benevolent shield. The whispers no longer carried accusations of deception, but rather expressions of awe and curiosity. Pups, emboldened by their elders' changing attitudes, would cautiously approach me, their eyes wide with wonder, eager for stories of the stars and the mysteries of the universe. I would indulge them, weaving tales that subtly imparted wisdom about courage, resilience, and the interconnectedness of all life. Xander, though still maintaining a certain distance, no longer avoided me. Our interactions were still professional, focused on pack matters, but the formality had softened, replaced by a quiet understanding. He sought my counsel more frequently, not just on strategic matters, but on the deeper spiritual aspects of their existence. He was a pragmatic leader, but he was also deeply rooted in the ancient traditions of his people, and he recognized the wisdom in my words, even if their source remained an enigma to his mortal mind. One evening, as twilight painted the sky in hues of deep indigo and soft silver, he found me by the river, skipping smooth stones across the water's surface. The sound of the flowing water was a soothing balm, a constant melody in the ever-shifting landscape of my existence. "The bloodfangs have retreated far," he said, his voice quiet, as he settled beside me on the bank. "They will not trouble us for some time. Kale has been humbled." I nodded, my gaze fixed on the shimmering reflection of the crescent moon in the water. "Their spirit is broken. They will need time to recover, to rebuild." A comfortable silence stretched between us, filled only by the gentle murmur of the river and the rustling of leaves in the gentle breeze. It was a silence that spoke of a new kind of connection, one forged not in romance, but in shared hardship and mutual respect. "I've been thinking," he began, his voice a low rumble, "about what you said, about our souls being tied by threads older than time." He turned to me, his silver eyes holding a vulnerability I hadn't seen since my revelation. Was it truly real, that feeling, or was it just my wolf recognizing a powerful being? The question hung in the air, a fragile thread of hope in the quiet space between us. It was the question I had longed for him to ask, the one that held the key to mending the broken pieces of our connection. "It was real, Xander," I affirmed, my voice soft but unwavering. "Your wolf, your very essence, recognized a profound alignment. It was not a trick of my power, but a deep, inherent resonance. The bonds of fated mates, though woven by me, are not arbitrary. They are reflections of a deeper truth, a recognition of complementary souls, and ours, though not in the traditional sense, was a recognition of ancient kinship." He looked away, his gaze fixed on the distant mountains, a thoughtful expression on his face. "So, I was not entirely wrong," he murmured, almost to himself, the feeling it wasn't just delusion. "Never," I said, reaching out a hand and gently touching his arm, a gesture of comfort and reassurance. "Your feelings were pure, Xander. They were true. My deception lay only in my identity, not in the depth of what we shared." He turned back to me, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of the old warmth return to his silver eyes, a tentative easing of the pain that had etched itself onto his features. "It's still difficult to process," he admitted, his voice rough. "My entire life, everything I believed shattered. But I saw what you did for my pack. I saw your protection. And I believe you." The admission was a balm to my long-aching spirit. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a profound step towards it. It was acceptance, a recognition of my intentions beyond the initial shock of my identity. "Thank you, Xander," I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. He held my gaze, and then, slowly, a faint smile touched his lips, a genuine smile that reached his eyes. "What will happen now? Will you return to your celestial realm?" The question was not accusatory, but genuinely curious, tinged with a hint of something unreadable. "My duties call," I confessed, a pang of something akin to sadness in my heart. "My absence has been noted. The balance of the cosmos requires my presence, but I will not forget this world, or you, Xander." He nodded, a quiet understanding in his eyes. "You have changed things here," he said, his gaze sweeping across the river towards the heart of the Packlands. "The Paki, they are stronger, more united than ever. They have seen the power of true leadership and the unexpected kindness of a goddess." He paused, his gaze meeting mine once more, a profound depth in their silver depths. "And I have learned about trust, about forgiveness, about the many forms love can take." We sat there for a long time, watching the moon climb higher, bathing the forest in its soft, ethereal glow. The silence between us was no longer heavy with unspoken accusations, but filled with a quiet understanding, a profound connection that transcended the boundaries of mortal and divine. The moon goddess, who had descended to observe and understand, had herself been observed, understood, and irrevocably changed by the raw, untamed heart of a Lycan alpha. The story of my descent, of my masquerade, had come full circle, leaving behind not just understanding, but a profound and unexpected legacy of healing and transformation. The threads of destiny, once woven solely by my hand, now intertwined with the courage and resilience of a mortal heart, creating a tapestry more vibrant and complex than I could have ever imagined. The return to my celestial realm was not the abrupt transition I had anticipated. Instead, it was a gradual ascension, a gentle loosening of the mortal tether that had bound me to the obsidian forest. As I rose, the familiar cosmic currents embraced me, their ethereal hum a comforting symphony after the vibrant cacophony of the mortal world. Yet, something had irrevocably changed. The vastness of the cosmos, once a familiar comfort, now seemed to hold a new, profound depth, imbued with the echoes of mortal emotions I had so recently experienced. My sisters, the lesser deities, greeted me with a mixture of relief and bewildered curiosity. The goddess of dawn, her form shimmering with the first light of 1,000 suns, approached me, her melodic voice tinged with concern. "Sister, your essence is altered. What have you learned from your prolonged descent?" I looked at them, at their serene, unchanging forms, and felt a quiet understanding blossom within me. They saw only the surface of mortal existence, the fleeting passions and inevitable sorrows. They had not felt the sting of betrayal, the fierce joy of triumph, or the profound resilience of a heart that could choose forgiveness in the face of immense pain. "I have learned that the bonds I weave, though divine in origin, are shaped by the enduring spirit of the mortals who bear them," I explained, my voice resonating with a newfound wisdom. "I have witnessed courage that transcends physical strength and a capacity for love that defies all logic. I have learned that true strength lies not in invulnerability, but in the willingness to be vulnerable, to feel, break, and to heal." They listened, their celestial eyes wide with a fascination they rarely displayed. My journey had not only deepened my understanding of their world, but had also subtly shifted their own perceptions, planting seeds of curiosity where only disinterest had resided before. Back in the obsidian forest, life for the Shadowmoon Pack continued, forever marked by the celestial intervention. Xander, now revered by his pack not only for his strength and leadership, but for his quiet wisdom, carried the weight of our shared past with a stoic grace. The wound of betrayal had begun to heal, replaced by a complex tapestry of respect, understanding, and a unique, unspoken bond that transcended the conventional definition of mate. He often found himself by the ancient oak, staring up at the moon, a faint, knowing smile gracing his lips. He saw not just a celestial body, but a silent witness, a benevolent guardian, and a complex being who had, in her own way, been touched by the raw, untamed heart of a Lycan. The pack, too, looked to the moon with a renewed reverence, understanding that their goddess was not a distant, unfeeling entity, but one who had walked among them, felt their pain, and offered her protection. The peace with the Bloodfangs held, but it was a fragile peace, maintained by Xander's strategic brilliance and the deterrent of the moon goddess's perceived favor. He continued to lead his pack with a wisdom that seemed to extend beyond his years, subtly guided by the lessons learned from our unconventional alliance. He often sought counsel from the elders, and sometimes, in the deepest quiet of the night, he would whisper questions to the moonlight, not expecting answers, but finding solace in the silent communion. Years passed, measured in seasons, in the growth of new pups, in the strengthening of the pack. Xander, though still carrying the quiet burden of his unique past, thrived as an alpha. He found love again, not in the fierce, all-consuming way he had once expected, but in a quiet, steadfast companionship with a she-wolf of his pack, a wise and gentle soul who understood the complexities of his heart. She recognized the profound respect he held for the moon, a respect that went beyond mere religious devotion. She sensed the unique energy that surrounded him, a subtle aura of ancient wisdom, and accepted it without question. They built a life together, strong and true, founded on mutual respect and unwavering loyalty. Their bond, though not one of fated mates in the traditional sense, was a testament to the resilience of the Lycan spirit and the capacity for love to find its way even after profound disruption. And I, from my celestial throne, continued to watch. I saw Xander, the alpha who had taught a goddess the true meaning of mortal love and resilience. I saw his pack, flourishing under his wise leadership, their stories now interwoven with the legend of the goddess who walked among them. My descent had been a risky venture, fraught with unintended consequences and profound pain. But it had also brought forth a deeper understanding, a connection between realms that had previously been separated by an unbridgeable chasm. The moon goddess no longer merely observed, she understood, her heart forever changed by the fragile, beautiful dance of mortal existence. My cosmic tapestry was now richer, infused with the vibrant hues of human emotion and the enduring strength of a love that, though born of deception, had ultimately led to a profound and undeniable truth. The years that followed my return to the celestial spheres were a testament to the profound impact of my mortal sojourn. From my throne, bathed in the cool light of distant nebulae, I observed the Shadowmoon Pack. They prospered, their unity strengthened by the trials they had faced, and the unique understanding they now possessed of the cosmos and their place within it. Xander, though aged by the passage of mortal time, remained a formidable and revered alpha. His silver hair was now streaked with threads of white, a testament to the wisdom he had accumulated, but his eyes still held that piercing clarity, that quiet depth I had come to cherish. His chosen Luna, a compassionate and perceptive she-wolf named Lyra, ruled beside him with grace and intelligence. She bore him several healthy pups, vibrant new lives that added to the pack's growing strength. Lyra, with her intuitive understanding and gentle nature, never questioned Xander's occasional moments of quiet introspection. When he would stand beneath the full moon, his gaze fixed on my luminous form. She understood, without needing to be told, that a part of his heart, a profound and unique understanding, belonged to something beyond their mortal world. She saw not rivalry, but a shared reverence for the forces that shaped their existence. The Shadowmoon Pack flourished, not just in numbers, but in their wisdom. They became known across the Lycan territories for their strategic brilliance, their strong sense of community, and an almost mythical aura of protection. Other packs, once wary, now sought their counsel, drawn by the whispers of their unique history and the subtle, unspoken knowledge that Xander possessed. He never spoke directly of my true identity to outsiders, always framing his insights as deep intuition or ancestral wisdom, but the knowing glances between his elders and his most trusted warriors spoke reply volumes. I, too, was changed. The boundless expanse of the cosmos, once merely my domain, now held a richer texture. I saw the distant stars, not just as celestial bodies, but as silent witnesses to countless mortal dramas, each one a thread in the grand tapestry of existence. My weaving of destiny became more nuanced, my touch upon the threads of fate gentler, informed by the profound empathy I had gained. I understood now that interference, no matter how well-intentioned, could have devastating consequences, and that true strength often lay in allowing mortals to forge their own paths, armed with courage and an understanding of the balance. The other deities, witnessing the unexpected prosperity of the Shadowmoon Pack and the subtle shift in my own demeanor, began to view my controversial descent with less skepticism. The goddess of dawn, once my sternest critic, often sought my counsel on matters of mortal affairs, her golden eyes filled with a new, hesitant curiosity. They began to acknowledge that perhaps true understanding could only be gained by shedding the confines of divinity, if only for a fleeting moment in cosmic time. One solar eclipse, a rare and momentous event when the moon briefly obscured the sun, plunged the obsidian forest into an eerie twilight. Xander, now an elder alpha, stood at the heart of his pack, his eyes fixed on the celestial phenomenon. Beside him stood Lyra, her hand clasped firmly in his, and their grown children, strong and wise in their own right. As the last sliver of sunlight vanished, and the moon, my true form, revealed its halo of light, Xander looked up. In that profound silence, a single tear traced a path down his weathered cheek. It was not a tear of sorrow, but of profound understanding, of acceptance, and of a love that had transcended the conventional, blossoming into something far more enduring. He felt my presence, a silent acknowledgement across the vastness of space, a recognition of the timeless connection that still bound us. I saw him, his heart filled with a quiet contentment, his pack thriving, his life a testament to resilience and unwavering strength. And in that moment, I realized that my quest for understanding had led me to a truth more profound than any I had imagined. Love, in all its myriad forms, romantic, familial, platonic, and even the unspoken bond between a mortal and a goddess, was the ultimate force. It was the wellspring of courage, the balm for sorrow, and the enduring flame that illuminated the darkest corners of existence. My descent, born of curiosity and a yearning for comprehension, had irrevocably altered both my perception and the lives of those I had touched. I was no longer merely the weaver of fates. I was a participant, an empath, my divine essence forever infused with the vibrant, tumultuous, and utterly beautiful experience of mortal love. The lesson was learned, the understanding gained, and the moon goddess, forever changed, continued her cosmic dance, her gaze ever watchful over the beautiful, chaotic world of the Lycans, a world where a mortal alpha had once taught a deity the true meaning of heart. My journey, though seemingly concluded, had woven new threads into the fabric of my eternal existence. From my celestial perch, I watched as generations passed in the obsidian forest. Xander, the alpha who had inadvertently taught me so much, eventually joined the ancestors, his spirit rejoining the essence of the forest he had so fiercely protected. His funeral was a solemn yet beautiful affair, a testament to a life well lived and a leadership that had ensured the enduring prosperity of his pack. I felt a pang, not of grief in the mortal sense, but of a quiet, profound farewell to a soul that had profoundly impacted my understanding of the very world I oversaw. Lyra, his Luna, continued to lead with wisdom and grace, ensuring Xander's legacy flourished. Their children, and their children's children, carried forward the values he had instilled. Strength tempered with compassion, loyalty intertwined with a deep respect for the delicate balance of nature. The Shadowmoon Pack, influenced by their unique history, became a beacon of unity and understanding among the Lycan territories. They were known for their peaceful resolutions to conflicts, their willingness to extend an olive branch, and their unparalleled connection to the natural world. I no longer just observed, I understood. When a young Shadowmoon pup, lost in the depths of the forest, whispered a desperate plea to the moon, I felt a resonance. I didn't intervene directly, for that was not my place, but I nudged the gentle currents of the wind, guiding a lost scent back to its source, leading the worried mother to her child. These were not grand acts of cosmic interference, but subtle nudges, informed by the empathy born from my time among them. The celestial realm itself, too, felt subtly changed. My sisters, once so distant in their understanding of mortal struggles, now often sought my counsel. They began to ponder the intricacies of the Lycan mate bond with a new curiosity, discussing the nuances of love, loss, and resilience. My descent, which they had initially viewed as a peculiar indulgence, had instead opened their eyes to the profound beauty and complexity of the lives they oversaw. One cosmic cycle, eons after my initial descent, a significant shift occurred in the Lycan world. Ancient prophecies, long dormant, began to stir. A new threat emerged, not from rival packs, but from within the very fabric of their magic, a creeping darkness. Born from forgotten rituals and unchecked ambition, threatened to unravel the mate bonds themselves, plunging the Lycans into an era of chaos and discord. This was a direct affront to the very essence of my domain, a corruption of the bonds I had woven into their souls. My impartiality, my commitment to non-interference, was put to the ultimate test. I could not stand by and watch as the very foundation of their society crumbled, not after having personally experienced the profound beauty of those connections. I found myself gazing down at the obsidian forest, at the descendants of Xander and Lyra. They were strong, but this new threat was insidious, unlike any they had faced before. It required a deeper understanding, a touch that only a divine hand could provide without completely disrupting their autonomy. The decision was not made lightly. This time, my descent would be different. Not as a disguised mortal, but as a subtle guiding force, a whisper in the wind, a heightened intuition in the hearts of those attuned to the moon's wisdom. I would offer guidance, not direct intervention, a beacon in the encroaching darkness. My previous journey had taught me the delicate balance between observer and participant, and this time I would walk that line with a profound understanding of its weight. The lessons learned from Xander, from his unwavering spirit and the resilience of his pack, would be my guide. The cosmos held its breath as the moon goddess, now enriched by mortal experience, once again turned her gaze, not just to observe, but to subtly protect the delicate balance of love and life she had woven into the very fabric of their world. The encroaching darkness was subtle at first, a creeping unease that began to manifest as unexplained surges of aggression within Lycan packs, even those historically peaceful. Mate bonds, once unbreakable, showed signs of fraying under mysterious duress, leading to unheard-of betrayals and heart-wrenching separations. It was an anomaly, a corruption of the very essence of their being, something alien to the natural conflicts they typically faced. I knew the source. Ancient entities, banished to the void eons ago, were subtly manipulating the ley lines, the energetic pathways that crisscrossed the mortal realm and fed the strength of the mate bonds. They sought to unravel the very fabric of existence, and the Lycans, with their deep connection to primal magic, were the most vulnerable point of entry. This time, my intervention would not be a disguise, nor a direct display of power that could overwhelm mortal free will. Instead, I descended as an enhanced whisper in the natural world. My essence flowed through the ancient trees of the obsidian forest, a heightened sensitivity in the flowing rivers, a subtle shift in the way the moonlight fell upon the earth. I focused my presence within the minds of those most attuned to the moon, particularly the Shadowmoon Pack, whose connection to me, however indirect, had been forged in the crucible of past trials. It began with Reese's great-granddaughter, Ilara, a gifted healer and an unusually perceptive Lycan. She started experiencing vivid dreams, not of the future, but of ancient symbols, of shimmering threads tangling into knots, of shadowy figures whispering discord into the minds of sleeping wolves. She would wake with a sense of dread, unable to shake the feeling that something fundamental was wrong. Through these dreams, I subtly guided her, drawing her attention to the inconsistencies, the unnatural patterns of aggression spreading across the territories. Her healing instincts, sharpened by my gentle nudges, allowed her to see beyond the superficial symptoms of the corrupted bonds. She began to notice a peculiar, almost metallic scent clinging to the agitated Lycans, a scent imperceptible to most, but one that resonated with the ancient corruption I was detecting from above. Ilara brought her concerns to the current alpha of the Shadowmoon Pack, a direct descendant of Xander, bearing his silver eyes and quiet strength, named Orion. He listened intently, his brow furrowed with concern. The pack had been experiencing their own share of inexplicable tensions, and Orion trusted Ilara's instincts, honed as they were by generations of connection to the moon. The make bonds, Ilara explained one evening, her voice hushed. They are being twisted. It's like a song gone sour. The harmony is gone, replaced by discord. I see it in their auras, Alpha. A dark, intrusive energy. Orion, with the wisdom inherited from his lineage, didn't dismiss her visions. He remembered the legends of the moon goddess walking among them, of the strange and miraculous protection his ancestors had received. He began to consult the ancient texts, seeking answers, subtly guided by my lingering presence in the pack's collective consciousness. He discovered fragmented prophecies that spoke of an unraveling, a time when the very essence of their bonds would be threatened by forces from beyond their world. My guidance intensified, though always indirect. When Orion meditated beneath the full moon, I sensed subtle surges of intuition, leading him to specific passages in their oldest scrolls, revealing forgotten rituals of cleansing that could fortify the bonds. I highlighted the importance of communal strength, of leaning into their pack unity, for the darkness thrived on isolation and discord. The challenge was immense. The unseen enemy was clever, its influence subtle, weaving its way into the very fabric of Lycan society. Yet, the Shadowmoon Pack, now accustomed to trusting the inexplicable, began to enact the ancient rituals Ilara brought forth. They gathered under the full moon, not for celebration, but for solemn ceremonies of reaffirmation, their howls carrying a newfound resolve that resonated with my own celestial energies. Through Ilara's dreams, I also began to reveal the subtle weaknesses of the encroaching darkness. It thrived on fear and division. It was repelled by pure, unwavering love and unity. This was the true strength of the Lycans, the very essence of what I had come to understand during my previous descent. The knowledge spread, first among the Shadowmoon, then cautiously to allied packs. It was not a magic cure, but a method of resistance, a way to fortify their own internal defenses. The Lycans, guided by Orion and Ilara, began to turn inward, focusing on strengthening their existing bonds, reaffirming their commitment to their mates and their pack. They learned to identify the subtle signs of the encroaching darkness, to recognize the discord as an external influence, not an internal failing. The path was long and arduous. There were still losses, still heartbreaks, but the Lycans were no longer helpless. They were fighting back, not with claws and fangs, but with the very essence of their spirit, fortified by understanding and guided by a subtle, divine presence. From my celestial throne, I watched, no longer observing with detached curiosity, but with a deep, abiding connection to the mortals whose courage continued to redefine the very meaning of strength and love. The balance was slowly, painstakingly being restored, not by divine fiat, but by the enduring will of the Lycans themselves.